before we get started, I do want to recognize the fact that the work that BizFed does, both at the Institute and at BizFed all in general. Shh. I stole that from Herb Wesson, by the way. That works. That works. Anyway, we want to thank the fact that we do work at the local level with our 88 cities in LA County. And with that, we make sure that we want to acknowledge those people who have come today and had to leave or are leaving, and I want to acknowledge them along with certainly Attorney General Becerra and Representative Judy Chu and soon to be Governor candidate Villaraigosa and Hadley. We want to just acknowledge the following, and that's Ivan Altamirano, Mayor of City of Commerce. There you go. Manuel Ortiz, Councilman from Irwindale on the east side. Mike Fong, Trustee of LA Community College District. And Stephanie Hu from Congressman Ed Royce's office. And Ed Royce has certainly been in the news. He's not a big supporter of some of Trump's stuff going on right now. That's very interesting. And Anthony Duarte, Hacienda La Puente School Board. We want to just thank you for being here. And again, BizFed is an amalgamation and collaboration of many, many businesses, cities, counties, associations, and chambers. And we're just so proud to be a part of the lives of the economic growth of Los Angeles County and California in general. I would like to introduce our presenter and moderator of this keynote luncheon and presentation today. And he is someone who many people know, have certainly heard the name. He has to be a good friend of mine, so I'm not going to try to embarrass him, but I probably will. Anyway, his name is Larry Kosmont, President and CEO of Kosmont Companies. Kosmont Companies was founded in 1986 when I was born and is an industry leader in public-private real estate transactions and economic development. In 1990, he founded Kosmont Realty Corporation, a real estate brokerage firm. In 2015, he launched Kosmont Transaction Services, which sources private financing for public projects, P3 initiatives, and infrastructure funding. He's also a principal of California Golden Fund and approved EB5 Regional Center. Mr. Kosmont's 40-year career encompasses public-private financial structuring and negotiations, development, and management of real estate and public finance transactions exceeding $12 billion, as a B, billion dollars. He has an extensive track record as a public-private real estate consultant and public finance advisor. Mr. Kosmont has assisted hundreds of local government agencies in public finance and real estate matters, ranging from large-scale economic development programs to site-specific real estate strategies and projects. He has guided over 1,000 private sector projects. Are you that old? Ooh, my God. He has got over 1,000 private sector projects in obtaining public approval, structuring deal terms, and securing public-private financing. And I want you to know that Larry Kosmont also was on the board of directors of the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California, an agency that I happen to work for 45 years. So I've known Larry almost my entire life. And he's just been a good friend. We worked on the strategic plan for the Metropolitan Water District together. And of course, we ended up building a headquarters building in downtown Los Angeles. And I want you to know that as a part of our friendship and just getting to know him, that he was part of some of the spirit behind Tom Bradley and others giving Metropolitan a $7 million incentive to stay in Los Angeles rather than going to Orange County to build our headquarters building. So I just want you all to know that this is a very important man who is going to be addressing you, and a good friend of mine, Mr. Kosmont, come forth.
Well, thanks. It's a privilege always to be in the same room with Gil Ivey and also with Tracy. Although when they're in the room, there's that fills the room up right there. I am a very honored member and privileged member of the BizFed board. I think this organization is extraordinary. I'm very happy to hear and see that Helen is making progress on the Institute, because I think the messaging here is as critical, if not even more important, than what BizFed does, because we have to spread sort of a balanced and I think evaluative approach to the economy that we all live in, which is complicated and at times divisive. So this presentation that I'd like to give you today is really from the standpoint of where Kosmont lives its day-to-day life. We are in the middle of public and private, and it's a very interesting place to be because we spend our time on Tuesday nights, many times in closed sessions with councils, trying to make very important decisions about economic development and real estate projects where the private sector has literally hundreds of millions of dollars at stake. The other half of the time we're trying to spend with investors for California and developers who are looking around trying to make sense of this, patchwork economy that is rather robust but incredibly challenging if you're an investor. And then I also tried at Helen's request to sort of insert, my perspective on where the Trump first 100 days are in the ongoing dialogue that I call California politics, economics, and environment, what trumps. And I personally don't want to see the state in a long-term battle with the feds. I think we have so much to risk. I think one of the things that you're going to see, it is very easy, and this will be a balanced message. I don't look at these things politically. I look at them economically and from an investment perspective. I think you will see a great deal of pain at the local constituent level if, in fact, the feds put the squeeze on monies like CDBG, which every one of our communities uses for boys and girls clubs and local, day-to-day activities for seniors and special needs. So there is a lot at stake in having a very high, loud argument with the feds. But that doesn't mean we should back down on our principles. We are a special place, and we do need to stand for those things. Again, in the sense of balance, it's important to know what's at stake before you get into an argument. It's like being in a relationship. I always think twice when I really ramp it up at home with my wife. Absolutely. So, and that's what she says only when I'm agreeing with her. So I break this down into a couple of points. State of the state. I'll give you a sense of where the state is right now economically. Economic development 2.0, what do I mean by that? Where are we in the ability and the capacity to induce private investment? Some trends. I think most of us that are here in business or we work for government, it's important to see what the private sector and the state policy, how they're converging in trends that generate investment and jobs. And then finally, just to look forward. I use a entertainment sort of approach because we are media capital of the world, and it's kind of fun to use the movies and TV as some byproducts of presenting some of these concepts. But back to the dog days of summer, or dog day afternoon, or the Trump days of summer, I think the reality, stepping back from all the rhetoric, I think the reality is Trump may not be very legislatively successful, but he's going to cut regulation for small businesses. And I would say this, that for California, that's a good thing because we're big on regulation for small business. So any relief would be good for us, whether we like it or not, or whether we like the source of that relief or not, that'll be helpful. I don't think we'll see tax relief for business across the country. We will remain the most expensive country in the world. So just again, when you're in California, you are a business in the most expensive state in the country and the most expensive country in the world. That's just the way it is. And that, we have to figure out how we squeeze the best out of that conclusion. We will, in no matter what, I think, see reductions in clean power and water rules, totally opposite direction philosophically from where California has been and frankly where it should be. It's going to help companies outside of California more than in California because California is not going to reverse its march on cap and trade, carbon footprint emissions. We just won't give that up, and I'll tell you why, because it's good for business, frankly. I think there's a lot of, some of the higher paying jobs are coming out of the energy business in a much cleaner, more sustainable way. So at the end of the day, we have a tale of two philosophies that are different, and California will continue, I think, to rule the roost for those of us that have businesses, and someone said that before, I think David said this before, businesses that have to stay in California will be dominated by California. We have no choice. Those businesses, though, that can leave may take advantage of reduced regulation elsewhere, and that could accelerate some of that outward march. I always like to say this. The companies that tend to move out of California are mature, evolved companies with large populations and large economic influences, you know, the Toyotas and the Nestles of the world. We birth a lot of small fish, and it takes a while for small fish to become big fish. I have 2 young kids, so if it's anything like my household, the small fish tend to cost money for a while. And they do create, it's not so true in economics, but they're just not as profitable for an economy as a larger company that has an ecosystem to it. And so we have to be careful about, you know, where we let this dialogue go. And if we add that to the fire, we add this gasoline of the loss of federal funding to the fire, of us being expensive, of us really promoting growth, but in a smaller company setting or context, and then the state and the feds don't get along, and the feds really become punitive and start to cut back things like CDBG, we will see sort of a collateral effect of losing bigs, propagating smalls, but not having service money at the local level to support some of the quality of life that the cities who don't have a lot of tax revenue and need economic development desperately can't really support on their own without some of that federal money. Could be painful, so I'll say. So I'll move quickly now. Most of you know I get through this stuff fairly quickly. So state of the state. Great panels this morning, I think, across the board. Some great insights. You'll see some repetition because, frankly, a lot of the folks that spoke today have come to the similar conclusion that Kosmont has. But we have job markets on fire. We create a lot of jobs. It is easy, and I love this mayor, but it is easy for the mayor's office to say we're creating 100,000 jobs. A lot of them are low-paying jobs in a high-cost economy. I mean, we have to know that. So there's a balance there. You know, the important thing about California, it's the greatest place in the world, I think, but we have to face the mirror. You know, I always say this, you know, really, am I that heavy? I mean, you know, it's like,
Yeah, you are.
and I am, right? So you know, the point of it is that the mirror doesn't lie, and California can't look elsewhere for the truth. You know, so if we're creating jobs and it's going to be low-level jobs, then we have to understand what the impact is for that. And this point's been made. You know, rising poverty rate. The flip side of not creating high-value jobs is that the poverty rate just becomes, you know, fairly emblematic. 1 in 5 living in poverty. There were stats about certain counties and cities and so on. And we have a big bill in the mail. You know, we're suffering at a low-volume job, if you have a household and you have 2 low-wage earners with a big bill about to come in the mail. And that is the state is facing a very large retirement bill. PERS has recalculated its return requirement because they looked in the mirror and said, I'm not doing as well as I thought I was. And all the cities in California, all 502 cities, are going to have to up the ante on pension requirements, which are already 50 to 60 or 70% of their budget, and they have no ability to do this. So we could be facing, in 5 years, a real series of the Stocktons again and the San Bernardinos if we can't figure out how to do enough economic development so we can pay a bill that's already been spent, and that's existing retirement benefits. So a lot of things here to say. Housing holds us back without a doubt. Housing, aging infrastructure, SB1, the new gas tax bill will help. It's another 22 cents on tax, though. You know, it is just what it is. And I think the stance on sanctuary cities, again, critical is that, you know, just puts us in the spot for a very, very significant fight with the feds that I'd like to see us avoid if we can. So why is a state great, and why does it topple over easily when it comes to a downturn? And I think Antonio said it perfectly. When you have 1% of the population supporting 50% of total income tax receipts, and the income tax is 70 to 80% of the state's budget, wow. I mean, that's the 6th largest economy, basically balanced on 2 consumer-based taxes, income and sales. Property tax is a far third. So someone said today, you know, you got to look at the whole system. It won't happen. There's no political will to fix this. So just when you think of California's 6th economy, the 6th largest in the world, know that it balances on a little triangle. It's a big globe, and when the wind goes one way or the other, it just falls apart. just the way it is. That's why we go from $5 billion positives to $25 billion negatives in the state. It's a formula. And in order to fix this, by the way, we like taxes. Wow. In California, we love two things, cars and taxes. There's only 500 cities in California. 350 last election had something to raise last year. Now, 40 of them were marijuana, 39 are marijuana, so we are high on taxes. That's my conclusion. And, you know, we did extend the income tax. The other thing we like doing in California is taxing the rich. We just do. And so that's where we are. Again, these are not political observations. They're purely economics. Housing shortage, it limits economic growth. And here is my point to a lot of what was said. And I don't think anyone said it quite this way. This is all about, in California, our future is sustaining a middle class. I mean, a middle class may be STEM jobs. It may be, but it's also high-level manufacturing jobs that are tied to the digital business, and that requires education, which we all said. And the reality is that if we have an economy that is an hourglass, where we fill it at the top, high wages, and we fill it at the bottom, low wages, and we narrow the middle, we hollow it out, it's just not healthy. That's a time glass we don't want to see work against us. So a lot of what we have to balance and accomplish through balance is sustaining a middle-class population, mostly with the millennials. So they don't go to Utah, they don't go to Denver, they don't go to Austin, because they can find a house at 1/3 the price and still make 2 great wages as a young couple, and then take one of those wages off to have babies and buy houses. That's what we lose. I mean, at the end of the day, I think the stats of which companies are leaving and which are going and coming, it's all about housing and sustaining a quality of life that's affordable for a middle class that starts, frankly, with the young, because they'll stay here. Once they plant that root, they'll stay here. And for all of us that are older in the room, we want our kids to stay. So hollowing out the economy is probably, to me, the greatest risk that we have. Now, we have great conflict. That's what I love about this place. In one fell swoop in an election, we will reject growth control, and then we'll eject measures that make it really expensive to provide affordable housing, the thing that we need in the first place. All right, no one said it had to make sense. It's just what happens here. But this also happens when you have what I call ballot box policy, where the politicians have in California become it's become easier for them to just say, let's let the people decide, and that's democracy. So we are going to get confused results, and we have ongoing linkage fees that will continue to go up. There is a piece of legislation, AB 199, out there in the legislature now that would make all single-family housing construction prevailing wage. I mean, again, it's just, to me, it's not an issue of prevailing wage for me. I want high wages, I want great wages, I also want housing. It's just hard to get them both, and that's what we deal with. So what is business's dilemma? Business dilemma is that they, sure, when the state increases minimum wage, because we're that consumerism-based economy, what I showed you with sales tax and income tax, things move up. But also what moves up is the cost of doing business here. So they deal with paying living wage, paying high tax. Our survey with the Rose Institute shows that all of our cities are the highest cost cities in the United States. San Francisco and LA leading the band, leading the parade. And we're about to impose more taxes. SB 1 is over. We increased gas taxes. In 3 months, we're going to increase gas taxes again by twice the amount that we did the first time around for gas tax, because that's what supports the carbon tax. It's just where we're going. So how do you induce private investment in an expensive state? You have to tone down taxes. Not easy when you've gotten used to eating a lot of taxes. It's hard to curb your appetite when you've been overeating for years. You need to expand the use of P3. Public-private is really where we need to go, because in an expensive state, if we can focus private investment through incentive programs that make sense, that yield jobs and taxes, that's a great way to go. And the state has actually done something very good for that I'll talk about in a minute. And that is really to beef up economic development strategies. And they have created a couple of new great districts. But before we go to the good news, I just want to emphasize that we're not going away on carbon footprint. It doesn't matter what happens in the White House. We will be green. They can be whatever color they want. And that's just the way it is. We have actually accelerated our requirements, which is why cap and trade will become expensive, because we're up to now reducing emissions by 2030 by 40% of what they were in 1990. It's a standard, by the way, we can't meet without a lot of help. So so that's the story there. What happens? How do you counteract, balance that? And I'll tell you that where we live our life, in the public and private sector world, what we really find is that the way we turn the confluence of issues that you're seeing around locally and move a community forward is by helping them induce private investment. And so the world in your local city hall, because frankly all taxes have to be approved by the constituents today. There are a series of 3 propositions, 13, 218, and 63, that basically make any tax increase in California subject to a vote. It's just a matter of whether it's a 50% vote or a 2/3 vote. So cities go to work, and they know they have to deliver all these services every day. Every day. I was a 26-year-old city manager in Bell Gardens, not Bell Gardens, and it's really important I get that out there. And what city managers do, our company represents about 60 cities, literally all over California, and counties and special districts. It's retail, it's hotel, it is development, it's residential housing. Those are the things that if a city can induce, it makes a big difference. Now, the way you induce it these days without redevelopment, because redevelopment got terminated, is that the state has given cities a lot of inducements called new special districts, called Enhanced Infrastructure Financing Districts, and CREAs, Community Reinvestment, Community Revitalization and Investment Authorities. I do not name these things. I can't even pronounce them. The left is really all the economic development tools that the cities have been given by the state while they pursue, on the right, a green economy. So in other words, here's what the state's saying. Look, we want carbon footprint reduction. If you want that too and find a way to induce industry that reduces carbon footprint, we'll give you the ability to use tax increment, and we will let you use that property tax increment to invest in businesses that are willing to come and bring jobs and build buildings and bring retail to your communities. So cities are motivated to create these special districts because they now have the tool for tax increment. Private industry, and this is why I'd like to see the board at BizFed understand this, private industry is being invited to make local investment in these special districts and get a refund on property tax for bringing taxes and jobs in. So there's a great tool out there, and it's just starting to work. These are them, the IFDs, the CRIAs, and the state has said, look, because we're in the business of emission reduction, we will give you communities a priority for state funding and grants to match private investment in these districts. So here's the irony of it. Great program. And the LA County, we're just talking about that, just approved an economic development program. It's a great program. LAEDC worked on it. And the first policy that comes out from the CAO on EIFDs, first rule is we'd like to protect our tax base, and no city with 15 cents tax or less could participate. You have to have 15 cents of property tax or more. So they just eliminated 80 out of 88 cities in LA County in this program. So we have to go to work, educate the county, and put this back together, because look at what we can fund with these kinds of programs. So that's one important thing. The county just needs some work on that issue. Okay, quickly, what's hot, what's not? We already talked about $120 billion investment. I'll say one thing here. This map changes the 100% corner for real estate, okay? We used to think that the 100% corner was, sort of Westwood and Wilshire, high volume, high traffic corners. No, the high volume corner of the future is around transit. So big change, investment needs to follow this. Another big change, connecting LA finally to the rest of the world that it serves. And that's coming, and it's coming in a major way in the next 5 years. I'll go through and kind of interesting is that if the Olympics come, and I hope they will, we'd be able to take a line from Westwood to downtown directly, two population groups that have never met other than on the freeway. And if we have a chance, we'll transform the river. We'll take our backyard and make it a front yard that's sustainable and green. And guess what tool this can use? EIFDs. if the county could have a policy that would support this, it would really move forward. And then here we go. We've got our throne of games. We have huge infrastructure coming in terms of sports. And we have other infrastructure coming. We have joint ventures, I call it. This is a business. This is a growth business, no pun intended, for California. It's a high tax business, so you're going to see, you saw 39 measures for marijuana, local taxes. In fact, those taxes might be so high they might flourish, they might keep and nourish the black market. So I spent yesterday in Monterey. One quick story. Monterey County approved the most interesting economic development ordinance I've ever heard. They know that they have lost their flower and herb business to Chile, to Mexico, and other places of the world. Why? Because our wages are too high for agriculture to support, right? So that business is gone. So there's 10 million square feet of greenhouses that are either empty or underperforming in Monterey County. And they passed an ordinance that said, look, if you want to grow marijuana, if you're an existing greenhouse, have at it. Why? Because they have the infrastructure for an agricultural business, and now they have the demand. Right? So, needless to say, I spent the day with investors from the East Coast wanting to invest millions of dollars in greenhouses in Monterey County. These guys pulled up in a private plane. They don't even know what a greenhouse looks like. I had to tell them it wasn't a shopping center. No, to the left, to the left. That's what you're here to invest in. Retail is changing because retail is just not retail anymore. It is a trip. I'm teaching our cities to say that if you're going to invest in retail, you have to invest in uses that get people out from under a computer. So it's food, entertainment, media, it is events, it is education, it is medical. Because you can buy anything anywhere, but you can't make a trip to somewhere on the internet. So I only have 30 seconds. I would just say that 1 minute, I just went up. This is like the stock market here. Can I get a put on that next sign? So just a little bit about the future. I think one significant change is the shifting of jobs, and this is why the commitment to education forever has to be the most important thing that we face in California to achieve balance. Because we won't be prepared for this onslaught that's coming. Tech is changing. First world food. If you go to Itza in Tarzana, there's not a person. There is a hamburger, but not a person. That's up now. I'm really out of time. So wheels next. I think Apple now testing and Google already here. Here's a port. There's not a person in it. This is today. And I said world-class greatness is coming to Los Angeles without a doubt. It is coming. But we have to help manage the result. We need to convert the jobs that we'll lose to automation to jobs we can fill. We need to make those jobs higher paying. We need to make the industry that stays just a little bit bigger, not just startup. And we need to understand how we balance investment with environmental mitigations. And here's the future. Here's a little bit of the old, a little bit of the new. On a newspaper, in the Wall Street Journal, hard copy newspaper, you can make an investment in a robot that will protect us, and you can buy those shares online. This is a week ago. It's a new day. Thank you very much.